Today we're going to show you how to remove the wheels on a Maclaren stroller. This is a Techno XLR, and the method for removing the wheels is similar along a lot of the Maclaren range. Reasons you might want to remove the wheels are to replace them. It is possible to buy Maclaren wheels separately, and very often the foam after a while gets kind of trashy. It gets holes and it gets pebbles and so on. But other reasons you might need to remove the wheels would be to realign the brake system. If you have tried to lubricate the brake system, we have a video that specifically shows how to lubricate the brake system. But if lubrication has not helped the problems that you're having with your brakes, it might be necessary to take the wheels off and then realign the entire system. One final note before I get started is that it is the same on the rear wheels and the front wheels. The method is the same. So if you have a need instead to remove the front wheels, you would do it the same way. To take it off, you'll need a flat-headed screwdriver or a butter knife, something flat that you can stick into the crack and pry off the hubcap. So just like this, and it will pop right off. Now on one side is going to be a bolt, that's on this side, which means that on the other side is going to be the lock washers. So let me turn it around. There we go. There is a series of lock washers. They all have actually quite a few around the end of the bolt. And so now we're going to need to pry those out, which is a little bit difficult, but I'll show you. I'm going to use a flathead screwdriver, and I might need to use a hammer in order to bang it down inside. You can probably tell from looking at it that this is a rather old Maclaren, so there is some rust, which makes it, of course, a little bit harder to work with things. Okay, so if you're still with us, then I assume that you've also managed to remove the annoying 3 lock washers. Don't worry if they are a bit scrunched. We're going to hammer them flat before we reuse them. Additionally, because the central part is hidden under the hubcap, it's not a big deal if some of the plastic has been damaged a bit. You don't want it to be overly much because you do want the hubcap to fit, but at least the plastic in this area, as opposed to the outside of the rim, won't show when you put the hubcap back on. Regarding the lock washers again, as you saw what I was doing, it was just a matter of prying them out, and then you use the pliers to pinch them so that you can bend those teeth away from the axle and thus get them off. And again, if they're a bit scrunched, we're going to hammer them flat, but you do want to make sure that they don't break while you're taking them off. Once you've removed all 3 of them though, now you can disassemble the entire wheel assembly. Pull off the outer part here, and within that is this brake bit. The brake bits are not like tight onto the wheels, they're loose. But sometimes the spacing of the axle gets off, and then the wheel isn't tight enough, and then because the brake tooth wheel, I suppose, is not tight on there, it can sometimes not be stopped by the wheel and just spin. That would be when your brakes aren't braking. Or the wheel can come in at an angle, and when it comes at an angle, then the brake lever won't lock down on it properly. So those are the reasons why you would have brake issues. As you can see, this one is actually broken, and so it should be replaced before putting this back. Behind this is a washer. You want to be aware of the order of how you're putting the stuff back together so that you can put it back together correctly. And then we can pull out the rest just by pushing the axle through. And there's the other side, and it's the same order as the first side. there being the axle. At this point, if you needed to, you could also then access the suspension spring. You can access the brake assembly, this like brake foot part. If you wanted to remove this, you would though have to drill out a rivet, which is not such a big deal. But in any case, that's how you remove the wheels. In order to put them back together, you of course just reverse the process. Take this axle, run it back through that side, through the brake part, and then you just want this positioned correctly. You will have to push up a bit because of the suspension spring, and then you can get that through. Then again, it's washer, this piece, and this piece. Now when you're putting this back together, it's actually important that it's not too tight, because there isn't an easy demarcation as to where these lock washers should stop. It's quite easy to hammer it in too much. So you do want to test a bit and find the right positioning. Test the brakes and the rotation of the wheels so that you don't make it too tight. I'm gonna hammer these out now to make them flat. When you're hammering them back, you want to put them so that they bend, where it's bent outwards is facing down. And then you can just hammer them flat again. Use a pair of pliers, of course, as well to help you out. I'm doing this on a board, but flat pavement or something harder than wood will function a bit better for hammering these out. Okay, just bending it out a bit. Now, when you're putting these back on, what you're going to need to do is one of two things. You're going to need something that is round, like a ratchet head, for example, that you can put down, and it needs to be the width so that it goes around the edge of the lock washer and will fit around the axle. So one way is to have a ratchet head of the appropriate size. You put these on, and then you'll turn the wheel sideways down and hammer onto the head of the bolt. That will start to hammer these on, and you probably want to take them one at a time, unfortunately. The other way to go about this, if you have assembled the bolt through so that the bolt is on the outside, then you can put it down with the bolt downwards, making sure that you have some raised items of metal or something to press on the bolt. And then you can use a pipe. Take a metal pipe, and you're gonna use the metal pipe in the same way you would the ratchet head, essentially. So assuming that this went through the other direction, then you would put this on, and the pipe, the circumference of the pipe would have to be such that it presses on the outside of the lock washer, but will go around the axle, and then you can hammer it in that way as well. One way or another, you're going to need some sort of thing, either a ratchet head or a pipe, something of that sort that is the correct circumference so that it covers the outside of the lock washer head and will go around the axle such that you can hammer it in place. That's really the only way to get these back on. Just remember again, of course, that it needs to be evenly spaced and you need to test the brakes and the rotation of the wheel as you're putting these back on so that it's not too tight. Anyway, that's how you remove and replace the wheels of a Maclaren Techno XLR and really quite a few other Maclaren strollers. We hope that this video has been helpful to you. If it has been, we ask you subscribe as it helps us continue making videos in the future. Thank you.